Today on Sammy's Sessions.
All right, well, holla at your boy. Real quick, the last thing that we talked about was you had a assignment.
Yes.
Well, remember what your assignment was?
Yes, it was. What did you abbreviate it for?
PIES. P-I-E-S.
PIES.
Mm-hmm.
Physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual.
That's right. Check-ins. Yep. You want to do one right now?
Yeah.
All right. So your homework was to do one for each day for 7 days. We've gone a few more than 7 days, but did you do your homework? Did you check in with yourself every day?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. And how did that feel in general? How did it feel to kind of be dialed into what you got going on every day?
Some days it was a little hard.
Yeah.
To be like, I guess, like sometimes, like I like to tell myself that I don't feel some things. And then in reality, I know, like, I do feel this way.
Yeah, I feel
and
that.
So, realizing that some things just, like, actually how I felt was kind of hard to kind of rally to. And sometimes it left me feeling, like, voided.
Interesting.
Like,
explain the voided feeling.
Because it's, like, I hated it that it's, like, this is how I feel.
Got it.
This is not something you want to feel. And it hurts at certain moments to know, like, today this is how I'm feeling, but I don't want to feel this.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help myself to sit around and tell myself something else that isn't true.
Yeah, totally. It literally serves you no purpose to lie to yourself or to act like it's not happening, right? We're not an ostrich. We can't just put our head in the sand and act like it's not going on when it is. And I think a lot of people do that, to be honest. A lot of people will just act like it's like they don't have a problem or act like, everything's all good when it's not. And then things just start building up and compounding. And, that's when, critical stresses break us, ultimately. So I'm proud of you for even looking when it might be hard to see what you could see. And that takes a lot of discipline and a lot of courage, to be honest.
Yeah.
So how about today? How are you doing today? Physically, intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually?
Today, physically, I feel a lot better. I feel fine today. I feel actually pretty good today. Physically, intellectually, I feel like I'm fine. Very more aware. Intellectually, slightly distracted because I allow certain things around me to just keep taking my focus. So intellectually, I am aware that I can be very distracted. Emotionally, same thing. I know I have a tendency to lose a lot of focus and get distracted. And that came from me just like choosing to sit back and evaluate myself. Spiritually, same thing. It's like focus kind of thing. It's like telling myself, focus. What are you doing? Focus. You're distracted. You're losing focus. I need you to like refocus. Trying to refocus.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a few days that was my biggest problem, and that's where a lot of my emotions were coming from, was from the lack of focus that I've had.
Do you feel like it's a lack of focus on yourself or a lack of focus on tasks? Like, tell me, what is it that you know you need to focus on?
Focus on myself. Focus on, I was like, for myself, it's like spiritually, like my relationship with God is like, I've gotten so distracted. I lose so much, and that's where the voided part coming from. I learned it was like, I feel like, okay, I'm feeling these voids because I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling distracted from that. I'm not paying attention again. That's been a very big problem in my past, was my distractions. And the distractions came from my mind, or me allowing things into my space that isn't good for me.
Yeah. What I hear you kind of describing is you're the distraction, the loss of focus is costing you more spiritually, emotionally than you're getting. You're focused on gathering for yourself, and so you're expending more energy and more time and more emotion than you're getting built back up. I think that's a common one. So don't feel alone in that. Have you had any thoughts about how to regain focus, or do you have any experience with what helps you to regain focus when you lose it?
Lately, so like even so, like, they didn't even realize this conversation. Danny was having a conversation with me and was talking about, we were just joking around talking about zodiac signs, even though I don't believe in that because it's not really something that's in the Bible. So personally, I don't believe in it. I see it all as a joke.
Wait, which part? Which part did you say?
Zodiacs,
What's that?
zodiac
Oh,
signs.
zodiac signs. Okay, got it.
So like I take this up as a joke usually. It's humor. But I was like
Sure.
sitting there and I was like, why? And she said a thing. She was like, we have a problem with trauma dumping. She was like, most Capricorns, you know, so a lot of us we trauma dumping. I was told, like, I even got told, like, someone told me, he was like, yo, like, he was like, Neonne will like dump some heavy ass shit on you. And then she'll go back to normal conversating as if she didn't just say that out her mouth. Like, and like, Ronnie gave
Interesting.
me, like, Danielle gave me an example. Danielle said she said someone could be telling her about a really good steak she had, and then she'll say some crazy stuff that was like traumatic, like, yo, my dog died from choking on a steak bone, and then continue the conversation so casually.
Oh wow.
It was like, I do that a lot.
And
And I
okay. So
sat back.
you felt kind of exposed in that moment, I imagine.
I was like, wait a minute. And then I sat back and at first during the conversation, I didn't think much about it. And then I got by myself and I started thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, I do that a lot. And then it's like it goes back to my focus. My focus goes back into the darkest things that I have in me, like the pain, the trauma, like living in agony, and you know, it'll set my self-esteem and everything about myself up in flames. And I would take the littlest things, and some things may not be little, but I will go back to them versus the things I should be focusing on.
Interesting.
Like, I'll focus on someone rejecting me versus the fact of if they didn't reject me, how much hell I would have probably went through if they didn't reject me.
Sure. Or the 30 people that accepted you and loved on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like I get distracted, and it's like it's the thing is like, so I tell myself like focus. I just start talking to myself like focus. I was like pacing and talking. I was like focus.
Yeah.
I started doing that, and I started thinking. I was like, and it's like memory started flooding me of like even people who have hurt me, and I started thinking about the good moments I actually had, the laugh, the you know, for example, I don't have the best relationship with my parents, like for my dad, for example, me and my dad don't have a relationship nowadays, but I look back and I was like, I usually pay attention to the fact of, oh, my dad, you know, said this or did this to hurt me and this and that, but I look and I'm like, there were moments that I completely erased out of my mind for trauma, for the things I shouldn't, for things that caused me nothing but agony,
Yeah.
that caused me nothing but misery. And
Yeah.
I started thinking back and I was like thinking about the moments like where I would be scared of thunderstorms. And when I was little and my parents were together, I would climb in their bed and they actually let me sleep there. And the moments where my dad did defend me from people. You know, when people would talk about me and be like, you know, she's this and she's this way, and my dad would be like, nah, she ain't even like that. So some you don't know her, but you're judging her. And it's like I even with my brothers and all that, I'm like, God, I'm like I'm missing so much around me because I'm so focused on everything that hurt me.
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to the wrong things.
Yeah.
And
Everybody will say you're thinking about the wrong thing, but I can identify with that. And before we get too far away
Mhm.
from the topic, I want to circle back to specifically the focus and specifically the tools
Mhm.
that we can begin to implement that some people might call them coping mechanisms, but for this particular thing, I think it is more specifically a discipline that's geared towards refocusing. I think that developing tools like this, little tools that are not super overwhelming and not super discouraging if you don't hit the mark on the head,
Mhm.
is really important for just starting to slowly but surely retrain your brain to focus on the positive, but then also to be focusing on the positive disciplines that actually get us to be recentered and refocused in the right direction. Sometimes with focus, because focus is so pinpoint and it's so small, and sometimes it feels like such a small target to hit. It feels easier to not even focus, or easier if you're just kind of saying I'm headed in the right direction. Or it can feel overwhelming that you're not headed in the right direction, or that you have gone down the slippery slope and you have lost focus on yourself. So I'm just gonna there's a couple that I've done before that I know have helped. I am a person that, I mean, if you were to look around my desk, it is littered with post-it notes, right? Because I am a person that loses focus easily. You know, like I literally will forget that I'm supposed to do a lot of things because
Right.
my mind will just run in so many different directions, and I've got so much going on. And in this crazy season with, you know, pain, anxiety, depression, I need to remind myself. And so I want you to start thinking, as I give you a couple of these examples, start thinking about ways that you can remind yourself, not just of who you are, because I think that's one of the things that's really beautiful about you, is that I can tell that you know who you are. Sometimes you just got to remind yourself, to be honest. And sometimes in the midst of all the bullshit, we forget who we are, and we forget how powerful we are, and we forget the spiritual being that we are, and we forget our spiritual dependence. And so I try to do little things to remind myself. I'm the silly kind of person that'll randomly set a calendar date to pop in and remind me to pray. Or honestly, when I can think about this, probably 7-8 years ago, I was in church and I heard a sermon from my pastor, Jarrett, at the time. He said that one of his spiritual disciplines was to set a reminder 3 times a day to pray. And even though he was, you know, admitting that sometimes it just goes off without him thinking about it, or he snoozes it or deletes it or whatever it is, for as many times as he can actually catch that alarm, take a second, take a deep breath, clear his mind, and be like, even if it's just simply, God, I'm just thankful for the opportunity to talk to you for a minute. It was amazing what he was able to kind of train his brain to do naturally. And I can tell you, 7-8 years later, I still have the reminder in my phone at 9 a.m., at 3 p.m., and at 9 p.m. to pray. And then I've specifically added things. My 9 o'clock one says, my prayer is for me to be a more loving person. I think I'm a pretty loving person, but I want to always be a more loving person. It'll never change. I'll always be working on myself to be a more loving person. And so that's my prayer at 9 o'clock in the morning. And do I miss it 90% of the time right now? Absolutely. But what I've realized is in the last 7 to 8 years, because I've created that discipline, it might not be 9, 3, and 9 anymore that I talk to God. It might be random times where I reach out. And that might not be the discipline or the issue that you need to work through, the opportunity that you have here. But there may be something that you need to set in your way. I have a tattoo on my right wrist that says this, the WWJD. What would Jesus do thing, right? Right. Super Jesus freaking all that shit. But at the end of the day, for me, it's not for anybody else. For me, it's my right hand. It's my most powerful hand. It's the hand I see the most. It's the thing I reach for. It's the hand I extend for handshakes. For me, it's just a little reminder whenever I see it, however I see it, in passing, in a picture, whatever, that says, train yourself to think about what Jesus would actually do in the situation, right? Whether it's stressful, whether it's not, whether it's whether it's me needing to gain more empathy and compassion for someone, me being able to sort the truth more clearly, you know, all of those things. For me, that's what that little reminder does. And you notice that they're not super abrasive or intrusive, you know. They're just little things I'm putting in my path for me to come across. In my bathroom right now, I have one side of the mirror that says, you are beautiful and you're a princess and you've been made in God's image. And that little note's for my daughter. And on the other side, it says, you are a pastor. And I don't even know why I wrote it that day, but that day, that was the thing that I felt like I needed to be reminded of. And I put it up there and I haven't taken it down in 3 or 4 years. And I might be going in there to just take a piss, but I might all of a sudden kind of look over and be like, oh yeah, I forgot that. I needed to remember that today. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what kind of little things can you start to think right now that you can put in your way to remind yourself to carve out more time for Neonne?
I actually was talking one day and I was like, was telling somebody, I was like, yeah, I used to write a lot. I was like, I used to love writing. I used to write every day.
Yeah.
Every day I was writing some type of poetry or something. Every day I made it a determined goal to write to myself, whether it was to myself, whether it was a letter to somebody else, how I felt, whether
Mm-hmm.
it was anything from my past that was burdening me. I always made it a goal. And I was like looking at my notebook. My notebook is full to the brim. Okay.
Yeah.
I looked at two different notebooks. I was like, man, I used to write so much. And then it's like, and then I was looking at my phone. I was looking at notes on my phone. I was like, I used to write on my phone. I used to write on my computer. I used to write everywhere. So it's like, I need, I was telling myself, if I go back to writing, it'll put me back intact with God in a way. It was like rereading things I wrote, and the things I wrote was crazy. Some things was like inspirational. Some things I was reading and I was like, I didn't even think I needed to hear this anymore. I needed this anymore. And then I was like looking back at it, I was like, I did need this. I needed
Exactly.
this. Even if back then I didn't specifically need it,
Or know that
I
you needed it
needed, yeah. It's like now I'm like, I need this.
now. Yeah. Isn't that incredible? I was not to steal your point, but I'm in such agreement with that. A friend of mine went back and read all of my newsletter slash blog posts that I started one a couple years ago, and I podcast and or write, and I was writing weekly for a year, and so there's 50-ish posts, and then I got into a really hard season in the last 3 months where I stopped. Meds changed and my thinking patterns. It was really weird shit. But in the middle of that 3-month funk, one of my friends was like, he found my podcast newsletter and he went back and read it. And at the end of it, he came back and was like, "You're actually gonna make me become a better person." And I was like, I didn't even remember what I had wrote, right? But the next thing he said was the most impactful. He said, "Will you do me a favor and go back and read what it is that you wrote, because I think that you need to hear some of this stuff right now."
Looking for my note like 2 seconds ago. I was like, where the hell did I just throw that notebook?
Yeah.
Like I just had it. Like I could pick any random date.
Mm-hmm. And it'll probably be exactly what we need to hear right now. I'm excited for it. Let's go.
I was writing bullet points. My sacred space is my place. I love visiting it where I am free and can be myself and feel nothing but love and joy and peace. Even at moments like this, I am here. I only allow those who want to help me and build me and want me to feel what I need to feel in this space. Many won't enter this space or won't even understand this place. They are not allowed to understand this place either, because many may choose to bring anger, rage, disbelief, hatred, coldness, or etc., and would want me to feel this as well. Due to some carry a chaos that I don't honestly have within myself at this moment.
Mm.
And I refuse to put myself in chains where I worked so hard to free myself from. I can never go back, and I refuse for anyone I am choosing to get close to or anyone I am connected to go back into a place where they once were. Another one was, I give
Mm.
inspiration in
Powerful.
reading. My words are powerful. My voice is mystical. These are symbols I will speak of what I want and of blessings, not just for me, but for those I love and open my heart to. And
Mm.
a soul for those who cannot open their mouths and cannot figure out the words. I will always be careful with my words because they show what type of spirit I carry and what soul I own. I shall stay silent around those who wish harm to my spirit and energy. I say little because they are not ready for what I can teach and what I can actually show them emotionally nor spiritually. I will only allow words for great people with open minds and open hearts. Beautiful hearts hear my words because of what I allow, and what I allow can shift the energy.
So it sounds like one of your spiritual disciplines needs to be writing again. And here's, I don't know if you're anything like me, but hearing something that I've written in the past that's so profound might actually make me a little bit nervous to start writing again. Just focus on writing a sentence. Everything else will happen naturally. I'm sure that you can already hear it coming. Your homework for the next 7 days is to write something every day. All I need is a sentence. That's it. The bar is very low. What you are experiencing right now is a holy thing. And you know why I know it's a holy thing? Because it's exactly what the Bible does. Exactly. It's 2,000 plus years old. Exactly every time I open it. Exactly every time I go find what it is. If I'm struggling with depression and I search depression in the Bible and I go to the scripture, it's exactly what I need to read and exactly what I need to know. So that lets me know that's the Holy Spirit moving through those words. Whether it's you writing it a little bit ago and reading it now, David writing it in a song, you know, 2,000 plus years ago. Whatever it is, it's the power of what that truth is to us. That God knows that it's the timing is going to be impeccable when you are able to consume it.
And then to read this and then look back and be like, you know, some of the stuff and be like, bro, I was 18, I was 17 when I wrote this. And then you looking back and it's like you're having a conversation and you're like so much older. Like you're getting older and you're looking back at all these years of these things that I've wrote. And I've been writing for years and looking at all this stuff. I'm like, bro, I wrote this when I was 16, 17, 18. I'm like, I'm talking to a 20-year-old, 19-year-old and it's like,
I started writing around the same time too, by the way.
What?
Yeah. And I mean, that's a lot longer than it's been for you, but I read things that I wrote when I was 19. I was like, damn, I was smart. But it wasn't me.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't ultimately me. It was God allowing me to see things that I needed in the moment and that I would ultimately need in the future. And I would be able to share along the way.
So it says, I don't know why I called it lights. And like, and then it's like, I think about it's like lights out.
Okay.
And it's like, you could run, you could cry, you could scream, you could throw your hands up, you can lay under the trees and tell yourself that the pain won't get any better and try to force everyone to leave. But I know the truth. I'll still be here to ease your loads. I'll hold you with the lightning strikes, I'll lead you home. If you don't know which way is right, and I'll love you when it's hard. I promise I'm not leaving from your side. Know when you feel you're falling apart, I promise to be there in the dark. Like, you can count every time you've fallen, even if you feel like you're in the deep and you forget it all, you're still in it with me. I know you have been lost so many times in the darkness, but I know you will find your way, even on the darkest days. And it's also hard. Please know I need you to see that I can ease your load. I can ease your loads. Please know that you can hold me and tell me what's wrong. Please know that when this lightning is striking, you won't be harmed and you aren't alone. Please know that I will carry you back home when you can't walk. When you don't know which way is right, please know that you still have love in me even when it's hard. That I promise that I've never walked out on you and I'm not going to. I promise that you may feel like you're falling apart because everything feels like it's going dark. But pray that I will always be by your side and that I will be a nightlight.
Wow. You wrote that, so that's handwritten? You don't have...
Handwritten.
Wow. I need a copy of that, okay?
Oh my God.
For real.
I'm looking at so much. And my notebook is supposed to the right, which is writing.
Yeah.
Writing. And I'm looking at this stuff and I'm like, oh my God, I actually wrote this stuff.
Yo, that is incredible.
Timing is...
The lightning striking, you said lightning in the same... I was like, wow, this is incredible. I'm serious.
I was 17 when I wrote this.
Oh my God, you are so good. And you give the wisdom to us when we don't even expect it. Thank you, God, for that. I honestly think that part of the reason why I'm called to like therapy and counseling and all that stuff is because God knows that it helps me get strength. And God knows that at every single point, there's something that I can gain from it. That every single time, He's got something in it for me too, and to help me like power through the shit that I got going on. So I just think that is incredible, and I thank you for sharing.